Welcome to today's market report. European stock markets are seen opening lower on Wednesday, with investors acting cautiously following the heated first US presidential debate and despite data suggesting China's recovery remains on track. DAX this morning traded 1% lower at 12,700. CAC dropped 0.9% at 4,800. FTSE 100 fell 0.7% at 5,900. Chinese data released earlier today showed that the world's second largest economy's recovery continues to progress. The September manufacturing PMI came in at 51.5, beating August's 51 reading, and the non-manufacturing PMI was 55.9 against August's 55.2, both remaining above the 50 mark, separating growth from contraction. China has been in the lead in terms of the Asia recovery story, but there is little doubt that its recovery also helps pull the rest of Asia along in its wake. This positive economic news has been unable to persuade investors also to put their money to work. Judging by the weak tone in the futures markets, with COVID-19 infections on the rise again globally and after a contentious presidential debate in which Donald Trump again cast doubt on whether he would accept the election's outcome. The UK GDP was revised to show a drop of 19.8% in the second quarter compared with the first, after the initial estimate showed a drop of 20.4%, while German retail sales rose a better than expected 3% in August. Later in the session sees the release of German unemployment data for September, which will be studied carefully as an indicator of the strength of the economic recovery in Europe's largest economy. Oil prices fell on Wednesday, continued the sharp losses of the previous session on the back of worries about future consumption amid COVID-19 pandemic and continued oversupply issues. Oil major Royal Dutch Shell said it would cut up to 9,000 more jobs as it wrestles with a new environment of low prices and potentially lower long-term demand. Crude futures traded 0.9% lower at $38.94 a barrel. Brent contract fell 1.1% to $41.11 a barrel. Both contracts closed more than 3% lower on Tuesday. Gold futures fell 0.6% to $1,891.45 per ounce. On the FX front, GBP is trading at $1.2840 after the release of the GDP data. The pound traded in a relatively narrow range between 128.24 and 129.02. However, the underlying tone still appears to be firm, and the bias from here is tilted to the upside. The pair GBP-USD has not been affected too much, though the dollar was up across the board after the presidential debate between Trump and Biden. Cable traders have their eyes on the ADP non-farm payrolls. Final US GDP stands out as September draws to an end. S&P 500 futures advanced at first, but retreated as Trump refused to say he would accept the election results. Brexit talks continue with somewhat less optimism than seen earlier this week. Eurodollar is now forecasted to test the upper end of the 116.30 to 118.30 range in the next weeks. Euro strengthened yesterday, but the sudden surge in momentum came as a surprise as it blew past the stiff resistance at 117.20 and hit a high of 117.45. Support is at 117.50, but the stronger level is at 116.90. Christine Lagarde, president of the ECB, is due to speak in Frankfurt and may shed light on the ECB's next moves. She speaks after German and Spanish inflation figures reflected ongoing weakness and coronavirus cases are rising in the old continent. Eurodollar managed to rise above 117, potentially also worrying the bank. That would likely to see a lower exchange rate. The dollar index inched up 0.05% to 93.977, but gains were capped by month and quarter-end currency flows. JP Morgan commented on the debate, "It is likely as if they are both just insulting each other. There is no much impact on the markets." Investors are also focusing on the US Congress progress towards passing the latest $2.2 trillion fiscal stimulus bill proposed by Democrats on Monday, after US House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi said on Tuesday that a deal with the Trump White House could be possible by this week, with further talks scheduled with Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin later in the day. This is today's market news. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.